So I have a theory, but first, before we get started, Kaatru Veliyidai spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, spoilers ahead. This is not a review. So if you're watching this movie, trying to figure out whether you should go watch it first, why? Just make up your own mind. And two, if you really must know, it's not going to be your most favorite Money Rhythm movie. It's probably not going to be your least favorite Money Rhythm movie. 10 years from now, when you're completing the sentence, Money Rhythm movie, such as this is the movie you're going to forget to list. So watch it if you want. Anyway, if you haven't seen the movie, bye, go away. So where was I? I have a theory. Right. I think Kaatru Veliyidai has a perception problem. When we see Kaatru Veliyidai, it seems like Okay Kanmani, right? Like the posters look like Okay Kanmani. It's a movie about two people meeting. They're cute looking people. This is a cute people movie. We know this movie. We've seen it. We've seen Okay Kanmani. We've seen Alipayade. We get this. We see things in the trailers. We see VC, who's Karti's character, saying things like, oh, Dr. Manasu Marada, which is basically kind of like whatever Madhavan says, oh, நான் love பண்ணேன் நினைக்கல ஆனா இதெல்லாம் நடந்து போகணும் பயமா இருக்கு. We've seen this. Like he says brash things to pursue her, and she says things back, and they're witty, and that's the stuff that ends up in the trailers, and we think that's the kind of movie this is. But as you're watching the movie, something I think becomes incredibly clear. We are not into this. We can't get behind this relationship that's portrayed in the movie. And the reason for this is not a good relationship. And I think a lot of people watching the movie are evaluating it, comparing it to something like Okay Kanme or Epaibe, and saying things like, oh, there isn't good chemistry. It doesn't look like they're in love. But the reason is this is a train wreck of a relationship. This is an abusive relationship. And VC, Karti's character, is an abuser. So what are the signs of a person who's an abuser in a relationship? Not necessarily physical, domestic abuse. First, he expects compliance. This is not they expect you to listen or they expect you to take feedback. This is compliance, meaning I tell you to shut up, you shut up. That's red flag number one. If the person tries to minimize your sense of identity, you are a person with multiple dimensions, right? But if a person tries to flatten you, to make you fit a particular two-dimensional view of what they think you should be, and they do this by ignoring your individuality, when you say things that they agree with or that fit into the mental image they've painted for you, they're fine with it. But the moment you step out of line, the moment you leave the rails they've laid for you by saying something that maybe you believe, they crush it. If a person can't handle you in your full three-dimensional self and they try to fit you into a particular picture, that's a sign of an abuser. Number three, if they tell you what to feel, if you hear the line, you know you love me, or you love me, that's a sign of an abuser. Nobody gets to tell you how to feel, right? And this happens repeatedly in the movie. Karti does this all the time. There's actually a line in the movie. She says something along the lines of, why do I keep coming back to you? And he says, because you love me. If a person says that and uses your love as a weapon against you and to get compliance, that's a sign of an abuser. If a person, number four, expects apologies to be accepted, meaning they're not saying sorry, asking for your apology, they're saying sorry, and in their mind, that's the end of the issue. This happens multiple times in the movie. He doesn't show up for the marriage at the registrar office, and then she confronts him and he's like, oh, sorry. But right at that moment, to him, these two things are equal now. He didn't show up for a wedding and he said sorry. In his mind, these are equal. And he, from that point on in the conversation, he's operating under the assumption that he has said sorry, the problem is solved, you've accepted my apology. Later, again, he does something wrong, I can't remember, and then he knocks on a door all night saying sorry, 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 because he can't accept that an apology may not be accepted. That's a red flag. The physical stuff, obviously, he physically hurts her various times, and that's not cool. That's obviously a sign of an abuser. And even other things, like he uses social pressure. If a person uses social pressure, the pressure of your peers, to fit you into a particular role, which again he does it in the movie repeatedly. Like they're fighting, he instantly turns to people around him. He's like, guys, my missus is angry or something, to kind of make her feel awkward and to socially pressure her into fitting into a particular role, the role of a good, obedient partner. Individually, these could just be, one-off flaws that show up in a movie and somebody says something wrong, you get offended, You have some drama in a movie, they resolve and they have a song. This happens all the time, but this is not a one-off flaw. This is a pattern. This is a profile, and it's a profile of an abusive character. And if this was any other director, this is any other movie, I would think this is just random melodramatic stuff that's thrown in, because we see this all the time. Tamil movies are full of misogynistic, completely wrong things that the hero of the movie says, and that we're actually supposed to get behind. Like, watch anything said by anybody in any Perarasu movie, and it's just utter garbage. But this is Mani Ratnam, and I can't make that assumption because this is a person who takes characters seriously. Every movie has fully fledged, at least the main characters are pretty realistic, fully fledged people. So I can't just assume that these behaviors of Karti's character are just accidentally put into the script. I have to assume that he meant for this to be the case. As the movie progresses and you get to the point, the two timelines catch up, like the Pakistan timeline and the flashback timeline catch up. She breaks up with him and leaves, and he gets on a plane, goes off, and gets captured, and the timelines catch up. It's at that point that you realize something. This is not a love story. Kaatru Veliyidai is a horror movie. And the signs are there throughout. You start the movie thinking, I'm supposed to root for this couple because it's Karti. He's the hero of the movie. He's in the posters. This is the heroine. She's in the posters. They are in the songs. But at no point are we given any reason for either of those people to actually be together. There's no reason for the girl to actually like the guy, which is kind of odd if you think about it. And there's clues throughout the movie. There's the scene with when she goes back to Delhi and they meet the family, and the brother says, "Avana kolla pathirukkan," which just flies past her and nothing's made of it, and we just move on. As an audience, we just forget about it. And there's so many odd editing moments throughout the movie. They have a fight, and he convinces her, and he brings her back to the military base, I think, and it's raining, and they come out of the car, and he says to his military buddies, "Hey guys, look, I convinced her, I told you she'll come back, blah blah blah." You realize, oh, he's made a bet or something, or he's just done this whole thing to prove a point that he can get the girl back. This is not about his love for her. This is just about him proving a point to his friends. And you expect this to turn into a fight where she goes like, "This is why you brought me back," and they have a fight. But no, it just ends, which is odd. But if you look at it through the lens of an abusive relationship, this is the point where she, like us, is just coming to terms with the fact that this is how he is, and this is her life now. And she knows what just happened because you can see it in her face. You know that she knows this is what's happening, that he's made a bet. But she just accepts it, and the scene just ends. And the movie is full of these scenes that kind of just end because she's starting to accept her role in this abusive relationship, which is horrifying. But it takes quite a while through the movie for you to realize this is a horror movie. And one thing that's commented in a lot of reviews, Karti especially, has a lot of really strange facial expressions in the movie, that he's not looking at her romantically at all. But he's not. That makes sense. He's looking at her really weird because he's supposed to creep you, the audience, out. He is not the hero of this movie. He, to a large extent, is the villain, I think. Leela, Aditi's character. There's a scene which, when I was watching it, I thought was really weird, which is when they're in the plane the first time. They're going to go on a joyride, and she's giggling uncontrollably, and she looks really weird. But it makes sense thinking back. This character is a competent, intelligent, individualistic, really fully formed character, and she has no trouble speaking her mind. But in that moment, she's just a girl with a crush. She's a person who's heard about VC since she was a teenager, and now she's with him in a plane, just the two of them, about to take off into the sky. This is a girl with a crush. That kind of lays, we don't know it at the time, but that kind of lays the foundation for how she acts throughout the movie, why she puts up with all these red flags that are jumping out at us, the audience. We can see that he is not a good guy and he's not good for her, but she ignores it. And there's stuff like, the Nallayale song, which is just so creepy the way it is in the movie. Like, there's no music. They don't even go to the Pallavi. I only saw the movie once in the theaters, but if I remember correctly, the Nallayale chorus never actually happens. In a song, the chorus is kind of the comfortable ending point of the song, and you keep returning to it, but he just sings straight through, and it keeps us unsettled. The choice of lines that are in the shot, like without the chorus, are unsettling. The lack of music is unsettling. I think these things are meant to unsettle us, and throughout the movie, these clues slowly show us that what's actually happening is Mani Ratnam is using the cinematic language, the visuals, the cliches, the specific lines and shots of a romantic movie. But this is not a romantic movie. And one thing that's noted, and I think this is deliberate, is that a lot of parts of this movie are very similar to a lot of past Mani Ratnam movies. So when you see the beginning of the movie, like the first half an hour or something, Karthi being really brash as he's trying to, woo her. We've seen this before. He drives up to her, says, "Oh, you didn't show up," and he just drives off. That's like, oh, that just feels like Manoragam Karthik, right? We are like, oh, this is a bad boy. And then during the movie, you realize, no, this is just a bad person. At the beginning of the movie, when he's trapped in Pakistan in this case, it's like Aravind Sami in Roja. He's trapped and he is pining for love of his life, and you see that and you're like, okay, I know what this movie is. But then over time you realize you don't want them to get together. The point at which he flew off and got caught was actually the point where she escaped, and if he now gets out of this prison, she's in trouble again, and we don't want that to happen. So it's really weird. I think Mani Ratnam is deliberately tricking us by using the cinematic language of a romantic movie, but actually giving us a horror movie. We just don't know till we are halfway through the movie that that's what we're watching. That's what I think. I think this is deliberate. I think he's deliberately crafted a movie that's a horror movie and hasn't told us about it. The marketing doesn't talk about it. And the beginning of the movie seems like a standard romantic movie, which then degrades and twists. So that's my theory. The problem with this theory is that in the last 10 minutes of the movie, Mani Ratnam seems to completely forget everything. He just loses it in the last 10 minutes, because from the point where he gets caught again, that whole sequence doesn't make any sense to me, because he's in a truck, he's escaping, there's a giant, like, really unnecessarily long action scene, and the scene seems to be operating under the assumption that we are rooting for him, that we want this character to escape, because that's how action scenes work, right? We follow the protagonist, he's jumping around, he's falling, he's grabbing onto a ledge, and we're with him because we want him to survive. We don't want this guy to we don't necessarily want him to die, but we don't want him to successfully escape. So it's tonally a really weird scene to happen at that point in the movie. And then he escapes, and everything's fine, and then he roams for years, and then he finds her, and then I have no idea what happened. The ending of the movie is just complete hot garbage, because he finds her, and she's been pining for him all along, which I guess, okay, maybe makes some sense, because she was trapped in a relationship that she couldn't get out of, and she maybe wasn't emotionally, she's gone through some emotional damage, maybe. But 3 years later, and she's there, and she's like, "I've been waiting for you," and he's like, "I've been looking for you," and she's like, "Look, I have a daughter," and I'm like, "What?" And also the child, what's going on with that? Because when I was watching the movie, I didn't realize that much time had passed. I thought it's later that year of him getting captured, so I was like, "Who is this child?" And then he says it's been 3 years. So I'm like, okay, 3 years. So the child should be 2. This is a child who's in 2nd grade. I have no idea what's going on there. She's like, "Does the child look like you or me?" I'm like, it doesn't look like either of you. Who is this 8-year-old child? Another side, Karthi, keep the beard. Because I know he's trying to look all handsome in the movie, but then he gets captured, and he gets really downtrodden, and he grows a beard. And I know we're supposed to feel bad for him, but I'm just like, you look better now, okay? I don't think you were supposed to look better when you were trapped in the prison. But all this aside, what's happening with the ending? Why do they get back together? I have no idea. Am I missing something? Like, am I right about what this movie's about and I just don't understand the ending? Or am I wrong and it's actually just a bad movie?